Toyota. Just saying the name brings something to mind, right? Reliability, quality engineering. For millions of us, it's one of the most trusted car brands on the planet. But what happens when that trust is broken? In 2014, that's exactly what happened when the company was hit with one of the biggest criminal penalties the U.S. government has ever handed down to an automaker.
For decades, Toyota was all about one thing, this word right here, quality. And it wasn't just some marketing slogan. It was the absolute bedrock of the company, the philosophy that took them to the very top of the car world. It was a promise that every single car was safe, dependable, and built to last.
So that brings us to the billion-dollar question. Literally, how does a company that is practically a synonym for quality end up admitting that it misled the public and paying a massive criminal fine? It's a huge disconnect, and to really get to the bottom of it, we first have to understand just how they built that incredible reputation in the first place.
Okay, so let's talk about Toyota's gold standard. I mean, to really feel the impact of these scandals, you have to appreciate just how high they climbed. They weren't just building cars, they were revolutionizing the entire manufacturing game with a philosophy that pretty much every other company in the world tried to copy.
And at the absolute heart of it all was this idea, Kaizen. It basically translates to continuous improvement. And for Toyota, this was everything. We're talking about a deep cultural belief that every single employee, every single process was part of this relentless drive for perfection. This wasn't just a business plan, it was their moral compass.
And you know what? It worked. Boy, did it work. That philosophy of constant improvement led to this, 10.7%. That's Toyota's share of the entire global auto market, the biggest piece of the pie. Kaizen didn't just build good cars, it built a global empire, an empire that was about to be shaken right to its core.
The crisis that led to that landmark 2014 penalty didn't just happen overnight. It was more like a slow-motion train wreck, starting with these terrifying reports from drivers about something that would soon become a household phrase, unintended acceleration.
Now you look at this recent timeline, and it's not good. Falsified data, rigged tests, it looks like a really bad pattern. But to understand why these new scandals are so alarming, you have to rewind past them, all the way back to that game-changing case in 2014. Because that was the moment the US government didn't just accuse Toyota of making a mistake, they accused them of a calculated effort to deceive the public.
So when investigators started digging into the unintended acceleration cases, they found that the problem wasn't just a mechanical glitch. According to the Department of Justice, the real failure was about communication. It all boiled down to what Toyota knew, when they knew it, and what they chose to tell and not tell regulators and all of us.
And as they dug in, they found what they called a pattern of misleading statements. Publicly, Toyota was saying the problem was simple, that it was just floor mats getting stuck on the gas pedal. But what the investigation revealed was that internally, they knew about a whole other problem they weren't talking about, a sticky pedal defect. So this wasn't just a failure of continuous improvement. The DOJ saw it as a failure to be honest.
Now, you'd think that a billion-dollar criminal penalty and an admission of misleading your own customers would be a death blow for a brand's reputation. You'd expect investors to run for the hills. But the way the financial world reacted both back then and now reveals this really fascinating paradox.
After this latest news broke in June of 2024, Toyota's stock dropped about 8%. Now, don't get me wrong, that is a multi-billion-dollar hit. But for a scandal that sounds so much like the company's darkest hour, it's nowhere near a total collapse. And that surprisingly calm reaction is a direct result of the lessons Wall Street learned from the 2014 fallout.
And this quote from analysts at Citi really explains why. They see these massive scandals and basically say the financial hit will be modest. How is that possible? Well, they see these things less as a fundamental flaw in the cars and more as, well, a really expensive compliance problem. They're betting that Toyota's massive bank account and incredible brand loyalty are strong enough to absorb the blow.
This chart just drives the point home. Even in the middle of these new scandals, look at this. Way more analysts are telling people to buy the stock than to hold it. There's this huge disconnect between the crisis of trust with the public and the unshakable confidence of the market. And that confidence was built on watching Toyota survive 2014, make some changes, and just keep selling millions and millions of cars.
So what happens now? Well, the 2014 settlement absolutely forced Toyota to change. They had to completely overhaul their safety reporting, they brought in an independent monitor for years, they paid the huge fine, and promised a whole new era of transparency. And for a while, it really seemed like it was working.
Which leaves us with this final, and I think most important question. The 2014 penalty was all about a breakdown in transparency. Today's scandals are about falsifying data and rigging tests. It's the same fundamental issue, right? A problem with honesty. So for a company whose entire global identity is built on Kaizen, on continuous improvement, what does it mean when the same kind of problem keeps happening over and over again? It suggests that maybe the most important thing that needs to be continuously improved isn't an engine part or a piece of software, but trust itself.